Now when it comes to training towards the press handstand, this point here where tiptoes are just kissing or just floating is so important to be able to lift and press all the way up with control. And then once you get one, having that strong conditioned position also allows you then to get multiple repetitions because you can change direction at that point. And today I'm going to take you through how you can condition and strengthen that position to help you towards your first press, or add reps to the press you already have, or even allow you to progress to other presses like shoulder presses. Now let's first look at the ideal position for press handstand. So we have the feet roughly shoulder width apart. The hip is as high as possible because the feet are nice and close to the hands. And then we're right up onto the tip of our toes. Not on our toes, not balls of the feet, but right onto the tip, even the toenails. That again is going to make the hip as high as possible and also make it easier to get that hip crease on top of the heel of the palm, which allows you to have enough weight in front and enough weight behind to balance the position so you can then float up to handstand. Now everybody's position is going to look slightly different depending on limb length, strength, flexibility, training history, and everything in between. So what I'd highly recommend you do is just grab a camera or your phone, stick it over there, make sure you're sideways on, and then just get as close to this position as possible. It might look like this, it might look like this, or it might look like this and you might be floating. But just go into the position and hold for 10 seconds. Not for 1 second, but for at least 10 seconds. That's really, really important. Because some of you will be able to get into that perfect position, but you'll feel like you're going to face plant, or you'll just visit it for a second and come back again. We need to make sure that you can hold the position for time, and that's realistically going to give you a better position or better understanding of your current level. And then from that self-assessment, we're going to have an idea of where you're at. We're going to have an idea from visually looking at the position. Where is this hip crease relevant to the heel of the palm? Does it come right on top, or is it far back over here? And then also, how does it feel? How much weight is there in the feet, and how much weight is there in the hands and shoulders? If you're like this, you're going to have lots of weight in the feet, but if you're more like this, you're going to have nothing in the feet or very little, and you're going to be closer to floating. And both of those things are a great way to constantly assess your progress towards the press handstand. Now to improve your position, we basically have two different ways we can do it. We can make you stronger in the shoulders, the upper back, in the planche position, so taking the shoulders forwards. So if my position is like this and my hips are back here, I can bring the hip on top by planching the shoulders forwards, and now I can float the feet. And I could press up there, it's just using a lot more strength. But the other thing we can work on is our flexibility. So the ability to get nice and deep, but also deeper in the straddle position. So deeper here in that flexibility. And that's just going to allow you to get a way more stacked position when you flow up to handstand. So that second one is going to allow you to do way more repetitions, but there's probably less room for error. So the day where you're not feeling 100% or you're tight from squats the day before might mean that you can't press handstand. But if you can also use strength, you have the best of both worlds. So I recommend that everyone works a little bit on their strength and a little bit on their flexibility as they're working towards the skill of the press handstand. Then you just want to try and keep it as simplistic as possible when you're training to improve the strength and the flexibility. So a combination of things like Jefferson curls or forward folds, again as deep as you can into this position, whichever type of flexibility work you enjoy or find works best for you for lengthening the calves and the hamstrings and get deeper into this position, combined with some straddle, good morning type movements where you're open and closing this position. Notice I'm not using the hands. And that should really take care of that flexibility position for that start position of the press handstand. And then for the shoulder position, we want to be thinking more about a planche. So we're going to externally rotate the hands. Now you could go into full planche positions like this, where we're bringing the torso all the way down. And they work fantastically if you're working towards a planche by itself as a skill. But if we're focusing solely on the press handstand, we want the hip to be a little bit higher and be more like this type of position and be conditioning here like that. So you can literally go in and out of that position. You could try holding with one leg, alternating legs, or just holding here for time. and also combining wall lean type movements where you're externally rotating the hands, pushing nice and tall, and then taking the shoulders to the wall and back off again. Now these are also great, build the base and the conditioning to work on the slow eccentric press handstands. And that eccentric press handstand is so important in learning the press, coming down as slow as possible all the way down to that start position with control, either against the wall or freestanding. And I go through that one in much more detail in this video. But if you're interested in individual coaching, whether it's online or via my app, check out my website, www.paultwyman.com.au. Let me know if you have any questions down below. I'll speak to you guys in the next one.